Okay, guys, so let's start our session for today. So hello, everyone. Hope you guys can hear me well. Today is our third class of Power Automate and Power Virtual Agent track. So before we jump to our class, let me introduce myself, just a quick intro. So I'm Carolina Malta. I'm Power Platform and Dynamics 365 consultant. I have over 10 years of experience work with Microsoft platform as a developer. So, and I'm really glad to be here, join Techstarler as a mentor this year, and hope I will be able to help you guys to understand a little better about Power Platform. And just moving forward, let me go to the next slide. Okay, so for today, we're gonna see flow control, variables, and expressions. So our exercise will be based in list of Office in Excel. So we are going to create a flow that will send a report describing list of Office and also include which one is the biggest often. Just this email here that you are seeing the hand side. Okay, so now let me go to our Office 365 environment. Here. Okay, so first step in our exercise in our lab today, we're gonna create a Excel list, Excel table in OneDrive business. So I'm going to create here an Excel workbook. And in this Excel, we're gonna need two columns that is going to be a list of office in the company. So first column will be city, and the second will be capacity. So I'm gonna create few seats and few capacity here to be using our exercise. So let's say that we're gonna have a London office and capacity will be 100. Let's say Brussels office capacity 250. Let's say that also we have a Lagos and will be 350. And let me enter a couple of more. Toronto 50. Paris 55, just a bit different, and just one more to have a good example, and 70. Okay, so now we have our columns. Let's add this column into a table. Very important when we're gonna retrieve in the flow to the columns be in a table. Let me add here, create a table. Okay. Great, so now we have our table to be using our exercise. We are ready to move to our flow environment. Okay, so in our Power Automate, I'm going to create a new flow. And our flow today will be type schedule flow, schedule cloud. So let me add a name to, let's say, report office capacity. And I want to this flow to run repeatedly every month, once a month. And create. And also, please feel free to stop me if you guys have any questions or any comments. Yeah, feel free to open your mic or even put in the chat. I will take a look at it. Okay, so now we have our flow. And we have our trigger. So our trigger is a recurrence of monthly frequency. And now we can start building our flow to retrieve our office. So first thing that I'm going to do is work with variables. So I'm going to create a variable to hold our data, to hold your max capacity, okay? So in order to use the variables, The first thing that we need to do is to initiate this variable. So we are declaring this variable. Okay, so I'm going to use a capacity. And here in this part we have few types of variable that we can choose. So we can choose Boolean, that's true or false, integer, numeric, key float, numeric as well, string, object, it's basically JSON, and array. So for this one is total capacity, I'm going to choose integer and I'm going to initiate with 0. Okay, so just for the best practice and to be easy to read our flow, I'm going to rename and add here the name of variable that I'm working, just to be easy to find when you need to change something here. Okay, and I'm going to save. Okay, now we have a variable to storage the total capacity. The next thing that I'm going to do is now to read our table in Excel. So for this one, I'm going to choose Excel Online, and the action will be list rows present in a table. So this action allows us to read from Excel Online. And then here we need to choose the location. Will be OneDrive. Document library will be here. OneDrive. File, the file name that I created, the name is book. And the table is table 1. Okay, so in this way we are just pointing the location that we are reading. So if I have more tables, will be listed here, or even if I have more files in OneDrive, also I can choose between mine. So for this one, it's just showing me one because I just have this table now. Okay, now I'm going to save. Great, so we have variable for total capacity and we are reading our table in Excel. The next step, we need to add action that calls apply to each. So basically this apply to each is a loop, and it goes through each line that we have in our table. So it allows us to manipulate the table. So it's pretty powerful, this control that is really handy to read things in loop. So okay, and then here we need to select the output. So the output means the list of items that we're gonna go through. So for this one, I'm going to list the list of items that we get from our Excel. So list of items, values. Okay, so in this way, what I'm doing is I'm creating a loop applied to it for each line that we have in our table of offices. Okay, so next thing that we need to do now, let's set a value to this total capacity variable. So what I'm going to do here is adding an action inside the loop. Okay. Here I'll add the variable, and I'm going to increment a variable. So I'm setting a value to this variable. So, and also here I can see the list, the variables that I've created in my flow. At this moment, we have just total capacity variable. I'm going to choose this. And also the next step, we need to put a value for this variable. So it's a dynamic content. We are for each record inside the table, we are incrementing this variable. So in order to increment this, I'm going to use an expression. So here by default, flow give us a lot of expressions to be used and really powerful. So we can have like functions to string, collections, logical functions. So there is a plenty of functions here that help us to manipulate data. So I really encourage you guys to take a look and see which types of function, like math functions, date and time. So we can manipulate data really easy with this function. So I'm going to use for now a function that calls int. So this function transform our data. So whatever we put inside the brackets, we're gonna convert. So for this one, I want to get also a column. So let's say that also I'm gonna choose item. So item is another function that I'm using. So I'm using int and item. So item function expression retrieves the current record that we have in our loop. So for each record, we can get using item. So for this item, I'm going to get my column capacity. Okay. And also I'm converting. So here item, I'm getting my column and also then converting my column to int. Okay, so now I can click OK, and I can see that my expression is here. Okay, so now let's test our flow before we moving forward, just to see if we managed to get our table. So let me save the flow. And we don't need to wait each month, so we can test manually. So each time that we need to test a flow, there is this piece here that we can click and test manually. So let me run this flow. Okay. Okay, my flow run, and now I can check now the thing. So okay, I can see that it was correct, and then my apply to each. So now here I can navigate through the records that we read, and I can see each value for each record. So for the first one, it's 100. Next is 200, 35, 50, and 55. Just to be clear, so what we're doing here, we are reading this table. So this data here that I've populated in our variable. So yeah, we can see that's working good, and we can moving forward to our report. Okay, let me click edit. Any questions so far, guys? Please feel free to raise any questions. Okay, so I will take silence as a no. Let's moving forward in our flow. So the next thing that I'm going to do is create more two variables here at the beginning to help us in the report. So I'm going to create a variable, the same thing that we did before. Variable, and always initiate first. Let's say that I want a variable that will store the bigger office, the name of the bigger office, the city. So the type for this one will be string. And I don't need to initiate this one because it's just a blank, so it's fine. Let me rename as well to be easy to read. Bigger office. And just one more. Now I want to have a variable that will store for me the max capacity of these offices. So let me do the same thing again. Let's say this variable we will call max capacity. Just a quick note here, the name of variables needs to be unique. So flows don't allow us to have two variables with the same name. So bear in mind that it has to be unique. Max capacity. This one max capacity will be integer because it's a number. So and also I'm going to initiate with 0. Okay, and save and rename this action card to max capacity. Okay, right. Let me save. Now we have 3 variables in our flow. And now I want to populate, I want to set a value to this variable. So in order to do this, I'm going to create here in my loop, I'm going to create an action. And this action basically, I want to check which one is the bigger office and which one is the max capacity for this one. So in order to check this, we can use condition. And to use the condition is to choose a value first. And in order to do this, I'm going to use an expression again, because I want to check the total capacity for each office. So the same thing that we did to increment this variable, now I'm going to use here in the condition. So add an expression. So int here item. I want to get the current item that I'm on my loop, and which column I want to get. So I want to get capacity. Okay, I can click OK, and my expression is here now in my value. So on the condition, we can choose between different options here. So let's say that if we have a string, I can use contains or does not contains equal to. But for this one, I want to see which one is the bigger office. So I'm going to use is greater than. Okay, and then is greater than, let me add again expression to use my new variable that I create here on top of max capacity. So this max capacity variable will storage the office that has max capacity. So okay, expression again, int to transform, to parse variables. Okay, now we have our condition in place. So basically we are checking data between 2 variables. We are checking which is greater than. So if it is greater than, we can add some content here in the yes. And also if you want to do something on the no side, also we can, but for the demo purpose today, we're gonna work with the yes side. So if my condition is true, I'm going to add a new action here. I'm going to set which one is the max capacity. Let me write here variable. And I'm going to use set variable. And now I can see a list of my list of variables that I have in my flow. So now I want to populate max capacity. And value, let's use an expression. Same thing again, int item to get the current record, and then capacity. So in this way, I'm getting my column and adding to my variable. Let me also rename this just to be easy to read. Set variable max. Okay, so in this way, I know that every time that my condition is yes, I'm setting this variable. Also, I want to know which is the max capacity and which office has this max capacity. To do this, I'm going to set my variable. I'm going to add bigger office. And for this one, I'm not going to use expression. I'm just getting my dynamic content. So I can see here under my action list rows, I have few options, and also I have city. So my column that we are reading. So in this way, I'm going to select city, and I'm populate this variable with this column. So if our condition yes, I know which is the bigger office and also which is the max capacity. Let me also rename this to be easy to read. So now before we moving forward in the email piece, let me save this flow and test. So our goal is to check these variables if contains the bigger office. So if I move just back here to my table, I can see that Lagos is the city that has the bigger office. So my final value in the variables needs to be Lagos. Okay, let me test to check if our condition is right. Okay, test, run flow, done. Flow is running. Just wait a few seconds. And here we go. It's all correct. And here we can check our conditions. So for each line, we can navigate between the records. So here we also can check the values that we have. So in the first record was true because was the first execution. So we have London. And then if I navigate between here, I can see that in the second time is Brussels because Brussels has more capacity than London. And then if I navigate one more time, okay, great, we have Lagos. And then if I continue navigate this, my conditions should be false because Lagos is the bigger office. Yeah, so my expression is false. So it's not setting for this one because it's false. So if I have something happening in the no side, will be here, but I'm not doing anything on the no. So if I false again and false again. Okay, so that's great. We already know which office is the bigger and which is the capacity for this one. Any questions on this?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I understand what's happening, but I'm a bit confused on the apply to each, on the logical flow of everything. We're incrementing which variable and what happens after that. I'm a bit confused on the apply to each.
Okay, that's fine. So apply to each, it allows us to navigate between a list. So it automatically increments the lines. So let's say that for the first time, for the first loop, we are getting Londo line, and then automatically the next time we are getting Brussels, next time we are getting Lagos. So it just goes through each line that we define. So for this one, what I'm doing, so I'm getting my list from Excel, right? So I have my table here, and what I'm saying is, please create for me a loop for me to be able to see each record. And inside this apply each, I can decide what I'm doing with this list. In this case, I'm creating, so I'm saying the value because it's just the output for the list. And here, So we are navigating between the list and we are incrementing this variable. So for this one, we have the total capacity, sorry, the max capacity and the bigger office. So when I'm navigating, so when I'm reading each line, what I'm saying is check for me which one is the bigger office, has the bigger capacity and storage in these variables. So we are just navigating and decide which office is the biggest. Can you get, did you get it?
Yes, it's clearer now.
It's clear now? Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's a bit confused at the beginning, but yeah, so apply each is to navigate between a list, in a list. Okay, great. So moving forward in our lab, so the next thing that we are going to do is let's send an email to the manager
Okay,
or whoever
sorry,
we need.
before you continue, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, you've set the variable for maximum capacity and the bigger office. Where does this data go to? Where will I be able to see the bigger office? Is it only in the flow, or does it also go to the Excel worksheet?
No, it's just
Okay.
in the flow. It's just an internal variable in the flow.
Okay.
We are not sending this. So we are reading from Excel only and then populating in the internal variables. And then these variables we're gonna use to compose our email.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now let me compose an email. So I'm going to do this outside or apply it to each, because here my loop is just to set these variables to get the bigger office and max capacity. Then here I'm going to create a next step. Here I'm going to use my Outlook. And I want to send email. So I'm going to search my name. I think it's easier because there's plenty of actions on Outlook. Okay, send email is this one that I want to use. So first we need to decide the two for who we are sending this email. Just for the demo purpose, I'm going to add my personal email here. Easy to check. And subject, let's add office report, office capacity report. Okay, so to compose my email, I'm going to use HTML code. Tags is just to be easier to format the email, but as well we can use in another way, but I prefer to use HTML because it's just easier to manipulate the data here. Okay, so now we have our paragraph tag. Here, let's say that we have a paragraph and I'm going to compose my email. Say that I'm going to say the biggest office is, okay, and I'm going to keep this tag BR. So this is a line breaker, so it's just to jump lines. And here it's capacity is, okay, just one more break line. So I'm writing my email, and also I'm going to say the total capacity is. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going dynamically add my variables into my email. So here I can see my list of variables. If I cannot see, I can search by name. So the biggest office is, let me add a bigger office. Okay, it's here. Capacity is max. Max capacity. Okay, I'm adding dynamically to my email. And one more variable that we have is here. Total capacity. So in this way, my email is dynamically, so I can see for each month we're gonna send which one is the bigger office. Okay, so let me save this and I'm going to test. Manually run flow. Okay, done. Okay, quickly, performance is good. So let me check my email. Yeah, here we go. So this is my email. So you can see that here our variable is populating correctly. So we can say that Lagos is the biggest office in the company. Okay, so next, any questions?
No, it's clear.
Yeah, good. That's good. So just moving forward now, next step, let me add a table in our report. Let's say that also I want to see which is the biggest office, but also I want a list in the email with the full list of all offices. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a table, HTML table, to also append in our email. So just 1 second. Here I'm going to add before, after the apply each, I'm going to add an action here. And for this action, I'm going to use data operation block. So data operation help us to manipulate data. So and select, it helps us to add or remove elements in an object. So we can manipulate the object. So here I'm going to build my table. And so I need to, here I need to select which list my table will be based. So I'm going to select list of items that we get here from Excel. And now I can map how my data will look like. So for this, let's say that I wanted to show a column with city. And I can select value city here. And also I want to show the capacity. Capacity dynamically here. Okay, so here I have my data ready. So I have a table. And then I will, to be able to send in the email, I need to transform this table in HTML format in order to the email be able to read this as a table. It's just it's easier to use this because he creates this create HTML action help us to format the table. Create HTML table. It's also data operation. So here we just need to say which table we are using. So here is the output from this one, from my select. So this, I'm defining my table, and here I'm just saying that this table is HTML. In this way we can send by email. Then let me compose, just keeping going with my email here. Just one more big liner tag. And let's say here I'm going to use also this tag, list of items and list of offices. And I'm going to add our table. So here our table is ready in the format of HTML format, so we can just add in the email. Okay, so let me save. Great, let me test and see what we have in the email now. Okay, done. Let me check my email. Okay, just got it. And now we have the table. So using the HTML format, you see that it's a format in a table style. So we don't need, using this action, we don't need to take care of the format. It's just automatically for us. So we say that we want 2 columns and with this value. So it's all formatted for us. Any questions?
No, no questions. Very clear.
Great. So there's just one more step in our lab. So that's also we can manipulate variables in a JSON style. So actually now style is a text. So JSON is just a text-based format that allows us to structure our data. So just to be easier, instead of having many variables, as you can see here, we can manipulate variables in a different style. So let me show that to you how to work with JSON. So let me go back to my flow here and just add it. And let me create an object variable. It's just the same thing, but it's just another way to create variables and manipulate data. Okay, let me create an initiate my variable. And this new variable will call max office. And the type will be object. So for the JSON, we always need to have inside the brackets, curly brackets. And we can work with properties and values. So we always have to put double quotes to define property. So let's say office capacity will be my property, and the value I'm just initiate for now. So my first value will be 0, and then comma I'm going to create one more property in my object. So it will be office name, and office name will be string. So I'm formatting just as a blank string to initiate. So now let me rename here, initiate max office JSON. So JSON is just a way that we can format our data in a structured way. So sometimes we have integrations, we have network, we need to transmit data in our object instead of many variables. So then using JSON format, we can have like this. So it's just easy to be transmitted in this way. Okay, let me save. And now just I slightly changed now in our condition here to use our JSON, our object. So let me change my condition. So here, instead of using this variable, I'm going to use my new variable, my object. So here I can use an expression. So variables function retrieves for me all variables that I have in my code. And I want office variable. And I want to retrieve the office capacity. So it's like an array capacity. So in this way, I'm saying that I'm getting my max office, and inside my max office, get column property office capacity, because we have two. We have office capacity and also office name. Okay, let me add. So now we are just changing the way that we are making our condition. So I'm using object. Okay, the next step now is to populate this object, this JSON. So here in the yes side, let me add a condition. So this is just the same thing. It's just another way of doing set variable. Here I'm going to set variable, and it is max office. And now here is the same thing. Oops, sorry. We need to compose our string, our JSON. So the same thing that we did before, but office capacity, and here I'm going to add an expression, and office capacity is a number. So first I need to transform to a number, int, and then I want to get my column, to populate my column from Excel. Python again, and capacity. In this way, I'm getting from my list the capacity. Expression is invalid. Let me try again. Item capacity. Okay, that's fine. Comma. And here I will put office name. And here expression and item and cities. And dynamically my city. So it's just another way of building these variables. Let me rename this to office. Okay. And then I can save. And I'm going to change my email. So as I have new variables to use, I can do the same thing here. Using an expression. Let me get the biggest office is, so int, we can use variables. We need to int and then variables, and let's say max city, and biggest office. Yeah, so I need to get office name for this office name. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm getting my variable. sorry, my mistake here. We don't need to transform to int in this case. We need just to get max capacity variable and also set to get the office name column. Okay. Now here, expression again, and we get variables, max office, and column will be office name. Office name. It's just another way to compose. Let me save. Say that open max capacity must be in each candidate. Let me check here. Max office. I'm using the wrong name, sorry. So expression. Okay, let me start again because I'm using the wrong name, sorry. Variables is office and the name is, let me get the name here. Max office capacity, and office name. Okay, expression, variables, max office, and variable office. Okay, I hope this works out. Variables, max office, and column office capacity. Okay, let's save my flow. Okay, saved, and let me test. Manually, workflow. Okay, done. Let me check my email. Yeah, here we go. We have the same email, Lagos and capacity. So we are getting from the JSON object variable in this case. So it's just another way of using variables. Any questions on this?
No, no questions.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, so the purpose of this class today was just to show you how to use variables and how to use expressions, how to use apply to each. So it's really powerful for these actions. So using these, we are able to do pretty much everything on Flow. So let's say we need to format dates sometimes, or we need to format an email like we are doing here. So it's pretty handy to use expression and to use variables. So it's really, really cool. So yeah, thank you very much for joining our class today. I hope you learned something nice today. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions when we are doing this by yourself. Okay.
Yes, actually, I've just remembered something. I have a
Yeah.
question, or rather a clarification for the variables. When we are summing up everything, there's no expression for sum. You have to increment. You have to use the increment.
Yeah, so the increment, we are not incrementing in this case. We are just overriding the data every time. So we are just setting the variable with the max capacity. We are so overriding the data we are now incrementing. But in case we need to increment the variable, also we can do. So let's say that I'm going to create a new variable here. So variable, and I'm going to initialize. Can only be used at the top level. I cannot initiate variable inside the. Let me try here. Variable. So let's say that I want to sum up to increment variable. Sorry. Yeah, it can be this one. So let's say max capacity. We can have something like using an expression. So we can have like int item city. And if we can see here on the math functions, we can add or we can sum like something like this. And so like if you want to do something, sorry, no, my bad. It's not city, but it has to be an int for this case. But I'm just showing to you how you can build the expression. So if you want to sum, you can do the sum here, like using add. You can return resulting of adding two numbers in this case. So if you want to use the expression to adding two numbers, you can use this function. Or if you want to increment, we can. For this case, we are just overriding because we are just setting the latest values on this. But if you want to increment something, we have some functions here that can help us. Is that what you asked?
Yes, that's what I asked. Yes, that is
Perfect. Yeah.
perfect. I understand.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So yeah, so we have a plenty of possibilities here in the flow, so we can like work with pretty much every type of data here, and expression is really cool. Okay. Uh, Thank you very much, Lavender, for joining our session, and I hope to see you next week.
Yes, thank you too. You'll definitely see me next week.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Have a
Yeah.
nice weekend. Bye bye.
You too.